Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Moffitt, and I would like to welcome everyone to the July 14th, 2023 meeting of the Asheville Downtown Commission. The Asheville Downtown Commission was created by the City Council for the sustainability and continued development of downtown, a vital urban center of Western North Carolina's economic, cultural, and visitor activity. The Downtown Commission provides City Council with recommendations on downtown policies and initiatives. In addition, downtown commissioners currently fill 3 out of 9 seats of the city's Design Review Committee, which reviews development projects within the Central Business District, the River Arts District, and hotel projects outside of those areas. The Downtown Commission has the opportunity to provide input on projects outside of the scope of Design Review. We are streaming live on our Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website, also linked on the committee page. We do have an option for the public to listen live by phone. Yes? Kind of?
Yes.
I lost Avery. That's why I looked at you. Thank you. For those of you out there with us today, welcome. At this time, I will go through and introduce the committee members. Just say a quick hello as we go through the roll. Jessica.
Hi.
Sage.
Good morning.
Even Michelle.
Hello.
Andrew.
Good morning.
Nur Edwards and Stephen Lee Johnson were not able to join us this morning. Ricardo.
Good morning.
Robin.
Good morning.
Megan.
Good morning.
And we are joined by staff. I'm going to say good morning.
Good morning, Steph Munson-Dahl.
Good morning, Dana Frankel.
Wonderful. Thank you. So at this time, I will do a quick, we'll go through and approve our minutes, and then I'll do a quick agenda review. So do we have any comments or revisions for the draft action minutes for our June 9th meeting? Or is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Sorry, Megan, I looked right at you.
A second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. So our agenda this morning, we have and I'll get to public comment in just a minute. We have a presentation for the Carter-Ann Patton Stormwater and Pedestrian Improvements Project. Then we have a presentation or a discussion about the Downtown Safety Initiative, the takeaways and the ongoing services. I want to make clear, we'll also talk about Pack Square visioning updates, and we will, all of you will be gone by then. We will talk about a new meeting date and time for the Downtown Commission. So we're going to have a public comment now, just on the general agenda. There will be a dedicated public comment time for the Downtown Safety Initiative. So if you're here to speak to that, I'll have an option for you to speak to that after we receive the presentation. Does that make sense to everybody? Wonderful. Okay, so if you are here to comment on something other than the Downtown Safety Commission, now is a great time for you to make public comment. If not, we'll move right into new business. Going once. Wonderful. Thank you. That's as we expected. Okay. So Valerie, I think you are up. Yeah, I lost you. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm Valerie Wellborn with the City of Asheville Stormwater Capital Improvements Program. Let me get to my slideshow here. All right, yes, I'm here to talk about the Carter-Ann Patton Stormwater Improvements Project. And because that's a mouthful, I'm going to call it Carter-Ann from here on in. The project started as a stormwater project when it came to me. What you see in front of you on the screen is the stormwater overall plan. Now, we have rolled into that since paving, so we will be paving from Klingman to French Broad, that section of Patton Avenue. We'll be replacing all of that sidewalk except in front of the Patton apartments, because that's relatively new and appears to be ADA compliant. As well as installing all of this stormwater, and we'll be replacing most of the trees in that section because they're just no longer suitable for that site. Now, I don't know if you can quite see it, but there's a highlighted section in pink coming up South Ann Street. That is the section we have installed currently. The yellow section is to be installed, kind of highlighted that. And to give you a sense of the scale of this stormwater project, the pipe that we're installing all up South Ann Street, and then a portion of Patton Avenue is 54 inches. So it's about 9 inches shorter than me. It's a really big pipe. These structures, just a portion of one of these structures can weigh 10 to 15,000 pounds. So the scale is really large of what we're installing, and it's not a fast process. As we have been digging trenches up South Ann to install those pipes and structures, we have come across some interesting things. Fun fact, this area in South Ann, the neighborhood, was platted in 1897. And you can see that plat has been recorded in the Register of Deeds website. So on the left, I don't know if you can quite see it, but it's a wooden pipe that we exposed while digging. And inside that pipe, there's kind of some cables and wires, and we think they're old Western Union lines. So I'd never seen that before. And on the right is, we encountered an unexpected, unknown, as they say, block of random concrete that was like 8 feet by 6 feet by 4 feet. And it's right in our path, and there was no easy way to get around it. So we had, with a hydraulic hammer and jackhammer for 5 hours straight, had to hammer at that with the guys taking turns doing it. So it's just an example of sometimes when people say, when are you going to be at point X? Sometimes we can't say for certainty because we encounter things like this. To the sidewalk portion, on the upper left side, there's a portion of sidewalk that was on Patton Avenue. And you can see how it's kind of heaving because the tree roots are really large there and the tree's too large. So in the bottom center photo, you can see we have replaced that exact same section of sidewalk already because there was no stormwater installation on that section. And that's the exact same place. Now it is ADA compliant, the cross slope is appropriate, there are no tow trips. And in those tree frame grates, we will be planting trees in the fall when it's cooler, and those trees can survive and thrive. On the upper right picture, that is a new ramp we installed at the corner of Pearl Street and South Ann Street as part of this project. Previously, the ramp was right at the corner and just went straight up to the pole, and you couldn't quite even get around it. So that was not a useful ramp, and now it is. So we're really proud of those improvements we're making. All right, what's next? So we are, crossing our fingers, next week going to be in Patton with our stormwater installation, weather permitting, and no odd unknowns, no conflicts that we didn't expect. When that happens, the southern 2 lanes of Patton Avenue will be closed. The northern 2 lanes will be open, but they'll become 2-way traffic. And then there is one portion, well, I don't want to go back to plans, but there's one portion we'll be doing at night, and that's when we're crossing from the south side of Patton Avenue to the north side. And we're crossing sewer there. That will be done at night. It may take 3 weeks because we're also replacing some of the sewer, because the sewer line in that area is vitrified clay pipe. So we're replacing that with DIP. When that happens, traffic at night will be detoured prior to that section. So overall, what you'll be getting is a new upgraded stormwater system. South Ann Street will be paved, that portion of Patton will be paved, a portion of Carter Street will be paved. You'll have new appropriate trees and compliant sidewalk and ramps in that area. So it's going to be very inconvenient with traffic, but it will be worth it at the end. It'll be a lot of value added. And finally, I want to share with you, at the bottom of South Ann, there's a groundhog family that seemed to love our construction workers. They literally would run under their feet or run into them as they were compacting. So we just deputized them, and they were good little workers. So we will miss having them. So thank you again for letting me come and speak to you. Are there any questions?
I just want to make an observation while you guys are doing this, and this is great work, and obviously this area's needed a lot of stormwater for a long time. Is that because I'm often making that left on Ann Street because you can't make a left on Klingman? The signage there is actually really poor. It's very easy to get past that point and not realize that you're supposed to make a left on Klingman if you're trying to get to River Arts District.
Is that where you're trying to head to River Arts District?
Yes, so
okay.
if you want to do that legally, you're the best way to do it is to make a left on Ann Street, and that's
I
just,
see.
as a local, I know this. If you don't know this, you go past Ann Street, and then you
Pearl.
reveal behind a tree a sign that says you can't make a left on Klingman.
Oh,
And so I just would ask you guys to be sensitive about the signage in there while you're going through this, because it's already a little tricky to make this legal,
Sure.
to
Yeah,
legally
yeah.
follow the road to get to Klingman and River Arts District. And so I would just ask you guys to be sensitive of that and make sure the signage is good so that
Thank
you don't accidentally push people onto the highway when they're just trying to get to the River Arts District from downtown.
Right, right. Thank you for that. I've been handing out my card, but I might pick your brain on that just a
Sure.
little more afterwards. Okay, you've got my card
Yep.
there. Also, if anyone's interested, I've been trying to hand out my card to everyone, but if you're interested in being on my stakeholder email list, please let me know. I'll add you to it. We have a project page at asheville.nc.gov/projects. It's Carter Inn. My number's also on there. And we are open to hearing feedback, comments. If you have issues, we definitely want to be available. So yeah, I'll if you can email me, I'd love to
Sure.
talk about that more. Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, our next item of business is a takeaway and ongoing service presentation for the Downtown Safety Initiative. Ms. Rachel, I think you're up.
All right, good morning, everyone. For those of you that I haven't met, I'm Rachel Wood. I'm one of the city's 2 assistant city managers. I know you've heard from Ben Woody, as well as our city manager in the past on this topic, but delighted to meet those of you that I haven't had the opportunity to meet prior to this morning. Make sure I get it into slideshow view. And I heard this referred to as a discussion. Very much want this to be a discussion. We've got slides to kind of guide the conversation today, but as you have questions, please feel free to chime in. Okay, so starting with key takeaways, if you don't hear anything else from me this morning, I hope you hear that our 60-day downtown safety and cleanliness pilot has now transitioned to ongoing services that we're going to continue providing in downtown. So the pilot was a great opportunity for us to try some new things, had great leadership from Dana Frankel, our project manager for this effort, and now we're looking at what can we, in the long term, continue to operationalize. Safety and cleanliness conditions continue to be a top priority for city staff, and we're continuing to assess our resource needs and partnership opportunities to further enhance those efforts. So you all know, launched on May 1st was our 60-day downtown safety and cleanliness initiative. It focused not just on safety and cleanliness, but also having a more concentrated effort on assisting individuals in need. It included our standard operations, our baseline services that we always provide downtown, plus tracking and testing additional resources, and really encouraged community collaboration. This is a picture of one of the downtown safety walks that occurred, where we were able to get feedback from downtown residents as well as business owners. So we really wanted to focus on impact as we went into this 60-day initiative, and so data was a big focus. We wanted to be able to see what was it that we were able to achieve as we were trying these new tactics in the downtown area. So in the cleanliness category, we had 8 different volunteer cleanups. During this time period, 348 miles of sidewalk were cleaned, over 4,000 graffiti tags were removed, 463 verbal warnings were provided by Asheville Police Department, 56 citations were issued, and there were 94 arrests. We also had a big focus on environmental improvement and environmental design. Our traffic engineering team led an effort focused really on our street lighting and lighting in downtown. 54 lighting issues were identified, of which 41 have been resolved to date, and we're working with Duke as well as other entities to get the remaining issues resolved. And there were 57 noise complaints that were investigated during the 60-day time frame. There was also a really proactive component to this effort, and there were 888 business contacts from APD, 361 proactive and 85 responsive contacts and interactions from our community responders. Our community responder program launched at the same time that this initiative launched, and we do have representatives from Asheville Fire Department here today as well. And during this time period, 115 wellness checks were conducted. So I mentioned already, March 1st was the launch date of our community responder program. This is a continued pilot, so after the 60 days, we continue to have our community responders. And right now, we're looking at how do we ramp up our service model to ensure it's sustainable long-term and that it's meeting the gaps in community needs. So right now, they're operating 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily. They're focused on identifying immediate needs for individuals experiencing crisis. They're assisting as they're able, sharing available resources, also interacting with the business community to understand their needs, as well as understanding the needs of city staff who are operating in the downtown area. And they're taking a really data-driven approach, gathering information each day, and working with our community partners to make sure they're identifying and filling the gaps that are existing in our existing landscape in downtown. So we had a lot of lessons learned. One of those lessons learned, and this is continued feedback that we get, of course, is that proactive engagement and presence by law enforcement and supportive services continues to be needed in the downtown area, as well as across the city. We heard a lot of community support for continued presence of public safety, and we also need to have additional engagement from the public to ensure we're able to sustainably interrupt patterns of violence and reduce crime citywide, and more specifically in the downtown area. And you know, this has been a really great opportunity. I, of course, am new to the organization, but COVID did a lot in terms of impacting our ability to collaborate internally as well as with the community. And so this effort brought staff who maybe haven't been in the same room together into the same meeting room, where we were able to talk about cross-departmental collaboration, things that seem like common sense, but if you've never met the other staff person, you wouldn't have opportunities to have those conversations. So some pretty simple examples. Our parking enforcement officers are now trained on how to report streetlight outages. They know where to go to report potholes. They know where to go to report graffiti outages. And these things seem like common sense, but just over the last few years, as we've been working pretty much in a virtual environment, some of those conversations haven't taken place. So that's been another really unintended silver lining of the 60-day initiative, is that some of those relationships, especially in those high turnover positions, have been established across departments. And a lot of that's thanks in part to the meetings and the retreats that Dana helped lead, where we were able to identify what can we do and how can we do more with our existing resources. What we heard from the community as a part of this effort, generally we received very positive feedback. We were receiving encouragement to continue our existing levels of service and continue to enhance those. Proactive public safety presence is important. The cross-disciplinary approach is appreciated. We heard that a lot as a part of the safety walks that occurred. Discussing conditions on site with city staff leaders is very valuable. Businesses continue to benefit from further guidance on steps they can take, and that's something that we're working on right now. I know our new Development Services Director, Mark Matheny, has a lot of great ideas on some tools and resources that we can make available to business owners and residents on how they can more easily connect to city services. And people want clearer, more effective ways to route their concerns, specifically related to those who are unhoused or experiencing mental distress. So we're, again, working through our community responders, of course, working with our traditional law enforcement outlets. And then we, in the city manager's office, effective July 1, have a new constituent services manager position, and she's working on how can we better establish protocol internally to the organization to ensure we're responding quickly to resident and business owner requests, and that we've got better networks internally to ensure that we're not just responding saying thank you, we've received your email, but have those good processes in place to ensure we truly resolve the issues and that we're tracking the data so that we can identify where there are patterns. So what we heard from the community, and this is the follow-up survey that the Asheville Downtown Association conducted, I believe in June, as we were already seeing some of the great results of the 60-day downtown safety initiative. So I believe there was a survey conducted in February and then a survey conducted in June. So we did see some improvements. Some of those improvements that we noticed in the data were the top concerns shifted from reducing homelessness to safety, reducing criminal activities. So in February, 38% indicated safety and criminal activity as a top concern, and then 48% in June. There were also fewer staff and customers expressing concerns about feeling unsafe, so that went down from 78% to 72%. And a higher proportion of respondents said they felt safe during the day as a result of the efforts we had downtown. So this went up from 34% to 46%. Also, a lower proportion of respondents said they felt very unsafe at night, and more moved into that neutral category. What we heard from the community, so here's a snapshot on cleanliness. Respondents rated downtown as cleaner, which is a plus, and what was one of our key goals as a part of this initiative. Cleanliness as a result of this data and what we continue to hear as we're out in the public remains the most pressing infrastructure priority, and the need for lighting increases in importance. And I know that was a big discussion as a part of the safety walks that occurred throughout this initiative. So as I mentioned at the start of my presentation, what I want to make sure you all hear is that while the 60-day pilot period is over, we continue to have ongoing services in the downtown area, and a lot of the great lessons learned that we had, we are going to continue and look at how we can refine throughout the course of this new fiscal year. So APD will continue to have a proactive presence. This includes an increased presence as a priority in the downtown area. Extension of the community responder program. Right now it's going to continue as a pilot as we look to determine what that long-term service delivery model will be for that program. Already mentioned the prioritization of lighting improvements. We've got improved systems of tracking, and then as I also mentioned, we've also got better internal cross-training so that other staff know how to report lighting outages as well. We've also got a lot of work going on in terms of parking garage safety right now. I believe today, if not today, then Monday, a request for proposals for security services at our parking decks is going to be advertised. We're also working with our IT services department to install more security cameras in our parking garages, and then more proactive noise and zoning enforcement, and working to provide more education and outreach on those issues. Also, as part of our ongoing services, we've got a commitment to addressing homelessness. We've got outreach services through several of our community partners. Again, the community responders are working on improving relationships there and having better processes for how we can get those services to people in need. And then staff is working with county, with Dogwood Health, as well as with our Homeless Initiatives Advisory Committee. It's early, so have to remember what all of these acronyms stand for, on implementing recommendations from the National Alliance to End Homelessness to restructure our leadership and governance around homeless services, enhance outreach, improve encampment response, as well as improve our shelter capacity in the community. Also continuing our focus on downtown cleanliness with 7-day-a-week trash collection. We have a new contract for biohazard cleanup as well as hotspot cleaning. And then there are 9 dedicated public works staff who are focused on cleanliness. We also have additional contracted services for litter and pressure washing, UCW, and sea landscaping out in downtown regularly. Also, security in parks. I've already mentioned our parking garages, but we've got security coverage now 7 days a week in our parks with additional evening coverage in the summer. And then we have additional contracted maintenance to improve just the aesthetics of our downtown parks. I know I've noticed a difference just in the past couple of weeks as I walk downtown looking at Pritchard Park. And then improved coordination and follow-up. I've already mentioned our new constituent services manager. She has just started, and so right now she's really in that data collection mode, getting a better understanding of the different tools that we currently have. And I think her focus initially is going to be how do we increase the use and improve the experience that residents have as they're using the Asheville app, calling a customer services line, and then longer term she's going to be looking at are there better solutions out there to ensure that we're meeting the needs of residents and business owners. So of course, this was a city initiative, but it focused not only on what we can do as a city organization, but how we can better connect with residents, better connect with business owners, as well as our community partners, including the county, including the nonprofit agencies. So ways that residents can help, of course, continue reporting those concerns using the Asheville app. We also want your feedback on your experience using the Asheville app. Call the APD non-emergency line at 828-252-1110. You can also submit anonymous tips by text at tip2APD. And then, as I already mentioned, no one entity can completely solve these problems by ourselves, and so we are asking that all of you be a part of the solution and sustainable solutions are better than quick fixes. Consistency and patience are key. So we're going to be trying new things throughout the course of this new fiscal year that just started in July, and looking at, as we go into our next budget season, where do we need to make those resource investments so that we can ensure we have a long-term, sustainable, positive trend in addressing crime, cleanliness, and improving our quality of life and experience downtown. Also, how do we better engage with our partners? So these are the same key takeaways. Again, we've got ongoing efforts that we have developed as a part of the lessons learned from our 60-day downtown safety and cleanliness pilot, and safety and cleanliness continues to be prioritized in our organization. We're continuing to assess resource needs and partnership opportunities to continue to enhance all of our experience in our wonderful downtown. So with that, happy to answer questions. We've got a lot of great staff here who can answer questions as well, and I will take down these slides.
Okay, I'll go first. So what of the initiative that you started in the 60-day pilot program has stopped, if anything?
So I think probably the simplest way to answer that is if you look at Public Works. So for example, I think they had 9 staff dedicated throughout. Dana, do you want to answer the question? You're looking like you want to answer the question.
You finish your thought.
Okay. But so they're looking at what is sustainable to make sure that they can continue to provide the level of service downtown while also meeting the needs that they have across the city. So example, our graffiti crew doesn't just serve downtown, there are tags all across the city. So they're not just focusing right now on downtown like they were during that 60-day initiative. They are back to having a more community-wide focus. We hope that because we were able to clean up 4,000 graffiti tags, that's going to curb maybe the frequency with the tagging that's occurring. But we do have to have those resources available, and they don't just do graffiti cleanup; they're also backup litter cleanup crews. And so, making sure that we've got a more sustainable model citywide is one of the examples where it's not that we've completely stopped those services in the downtown area. It's just we're making sure that they're also hitting the other areas in the community that are having graffiti tags and heavy litter hotspots.
Okay. So Public Works is really the only one that's kind of backed off from what was started in the 60-day initiative?
Yeah, nothing has essentially stopped.
I understand.
Yeah,
I'm asking.
I'll just add that it's an ongoing learning process. So for example, Public Works was checking trash cans multiple times a day to see if they needed to be emptied. That was an increased service during a period of time, and then they determined that they didn't need to be, so they now are just doing that once a day. So I think there's adjustment as we go, but no, I wouldn't say there's anything that was happening and then has just stopped.
Next question. Who's going to continue to run this? Is this now a permanent part of Dana's portfolio, semi-permanent, or?
So that's something we're definitely still working through, and Dana has been a leader of a great team, and so this is only going to be sustainable if we have multiple staff that are involved and committed to this effort. So even though the 60-day initiative has ended, we are still meeting regularly. Again, we mentioned we've had a lot of benefit with that group being in the same room, in the same place. We've also got 29 Haywood, where we've got staff operating out of there and sharing ideas. So it's making sure that those staff are clear what their responsibilities and expectations are. It's also continuing to track and monitor that data. So if we see an uptick in the amount of litter we're collecting, maybe we need to look at our service delivery model there. If we're seeing an uptick in calls for a specific type of service, maybe we need to address our service delivery model. But it's going to be looking at that data again and using that to inform what are some of those longer term solutions that we need to look at as we're going into the next budget cycle.
That leads to my next question. So we've, community responders, additional presence, overtime, things like that. Is that in the current budget cycle for both the city and the county?
So the community responder program is solely with the Asheville Fire Department.
Right.
The county has their community paramedic program. Right. And so we're right now continuing the pilot with existing city general fund dollars. We also have opioid settlement funds. And so right now we're kind of looking at what does that service delivery model look like, and what would we be using our opioid dollars to fund to supplement what we're planning on spending in the general fund to support those those firefighters who are serving as community responders. So we do have some.
It's not a line item in the budget, but you've got other funds that you're using for now until
We
you can
do.
get it in a line item.
That's correct, because we don't know what the long-term service delivery model is. So we are continuing to fund those positions. We're continuing to look at the pilot. And then as we look longer term, what does that service delivery model look like? That'll be when part of next year's budget process we look at. Is this going to be 5 permanent firefighters that are dedicated to the program? Are we going to have 2 peer support specialists? We just haven't determined that because, again, this initiative, the pilot just started on May 1st, and they're still really in that data collection mode, working with our community partners to identify where there are gaps, and then really looking at what is sustainable for us to provide long-term.
This may be more of a question for AB. So you've collected a lot of data that we weren't necessarily collecting as much of prior to, but in some of the data, even though we've stepped up police presence, we have increases in property crime, increases in violent crime. Is that reporting or is that incidents? Because I think we were having an issue with some people were not reporting things prior to this initiative.
Yeah, so that,
Do you even know that answer?
yes, we do. And my name is Mike Lamb. I'm a deputy chief of the Asheville Police Department. So we did see an increase in both violent crime and property crime during the initiative. If you look at, there was, I don't know if the slide wasn't in there, but if you look at our,
There's one slide, violent crime by week, slide 8. Hold on, that's the wrong, anyway,
Okay.
I can see it. Keep going.
so yes, we had, okay, yeah, that'd be great, Dana. So, yeah, thank you.
Here.
The one I was looking at was slide 8, Dana. The crime and data context during initiative. Oh. Oh.
Oh,
There.
we weren't, yeah, but we can just
Okay.
pull that up, so,
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking at, I'm sorry.
well,
I didn't know.
no, it's viewable.
Oh, good. Okay. So let me go to slideshow for those of us that don't. Oh, it won't show up. I'm sorry. Oh, good. Okay. So thank you, Dana. So yes, we had our non-officer initiated calls for service go up slightly, but they pretty much stayed the same as as during 2020, during last summer or last spring. So you can see there under the officer initiated calls for service slide that proactivity significantly increased. So with the increased officer presence, officers, and I'll go to the next slide too, you can see there under the violent crime by week where the initiative began, and then you can see the incidents increased. So just to point out, this is crime that more than likely has been happening there, but because of the reduced officer presence, it's oftentimes not reported or the officers don't witness it. So this is a result of officers witnessing crimes in progress. And then when they witness that crime, they address that crime, they make an arrest, they do an incident report. So it's because of the increased presence that's why we saw an increase within the property crime and the violent crime. And like one example that I spoke about earlier this week was I was working downtown and a shop owner flagged me down about a lady that had shoplifted, and we found other evidence of other shoplifting events on her. So we contacted those businesses downtown and was able to return the property, and then those were the additional things that she were charged with. So those were just out of that one, somebody flagging down an officer and saying, hey, this event happened, that led to 3 incidents of shoplifting. And also she had methamphetamines on her, so then that was a felony drug arrest also. So with the increased presence, that's the reason for the increase in both violent crime and property crime during that time period.
Okay. Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
have a question.
Yeah,
It's a
you're good.
mini-fold question. So,
Okay.
Deputy, thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you do. Sheriff Miller, thank you for all that you do. Couple of questions. What does the future partnership look like between the Sheriff's Department and APD? And on the community responder program with the fire department, there is a breakdown in communication that I have witnessed, and what is the plan to get that solved?
Can you describe the
I would be
breakdown?
happy to.
Thank you.
Shocker. So there was a situation that somebody was graffitiing the back of our building during the day at the very time that one of the fire department officers, if they can be called that, responders, was in our store asking us, so how do you think it's going? Well, our manager was out back addressing this graffiti issue, saying, hey, stop it. I don't want to clean that up. Please stop. And then the community responders came out to talk to him, and they were like, oh, this is more than we can handle, and left. There was no phone call to APD or the sheriff. It was just, this is more than we can handle, we're out. So there seems to be some kind of breakdown in communication there. So I'm very excited about the community responders. What is going to be the process for, hey, this is more than we as firefighters can handle, we need to call in reinforcements and wait with this person who was having a mental health crisis until somebody who's more trained can come? So that's a multifold question. How are all these partnerships going to continue working together is the question.
Yeah, so, especially with and I'll let TJ, do you want to talk about that? Okay. So I'll let TJ talk about the incident, but, as far as communication goes, that's always something that we're wanting to improve on. And a lot of it depends on calls for service at that time. There's a lot of different factors that go into the decision to address or not address. And I'm sorry that happened, especially there at the business. But, I think one of the powerful things about this initiative is the increased partnership, not only between us, APD, fire, but also the public works, especially the cleanup. So I think this is going to continue to, especially with communication, with different departments working together, it's just going to continue to get better to where we'll have a safer, cleaner downtown. We appreciate the partnership with the sheriff's office. We appreciate the extra presence, especially since they helped us out during the weekends late at night, because that's where folks in their responses said they felt most unsafe was during the late at night hours. So having them with those foot patrols was helpful. The presence was helpful. So we coupled that with the investigations and the arrests and presence from the officers that we had downtown. You couple those together, and you can see from the initiative that even though crime increased, what does it look like downtown? As the perception is how do people feel? And we hear that people, especially during the daytime, feel a lot safer. So we're dedicated to having that proactive presence downtown. Now that may fluctuate because we address crime. We take a data-driven approach. So we put officers where crime is happening. Unfortunately, we've had 2 juveniles shot in the last 2 nights. So last night we had another juvenile shooting or get shot in the South Side area. So you may not see as much foot patrol because of that, because we have to have officers in their vehicles being able to respond if these incidents happen. But as crime fluctuates, that will depend on the number of officers that are downtown. But we'll continue to have a proactive presence within the downtown area.
So on that vein, I know that we're years away from being fully staffed. Is there ever going to be a downtown unit again?
It once had 27 officers. That was on my list, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of
Please,
curious.
what do we need to do? We need that back.
Well, I mean, and we've had some good hiring groups. We had 4 that we swore in last week, and then we have 5 that we've hired that are getting ready to start BLET at the end of the month. We're kind of breaking even between retirements and the handful of resignations that we're having. So our hope is that we can continue to get recruits and get larger pools of recruits. But like I spoke about earlier this week, it's a nationwide market now. So that's our struggle.
I guess what might help us is understanding how staffed up we have to be before that can be an option again, Yeah. Is it several years out? Is it 10 years? We've heard all these numbers. I'd love a little insight, what more you can tell us about the 463 verbal warnings. Is that everybody gets 5 warnings or one? Like, what's the process there, and will it just indefinitely be verbal warnings, or?
So it's officer discretion. Most most encounters that we have, as is evident by the data, is that folks, whenever they see a uniform and they see that it is a police officer, they understand that, you know, if they don't comply, and these are usually just trespassing or loitering or some very minor charge. If they don't comply with that, then there's going to be a consequence for that. So most of the time when officers approach folks and ask them to comply with whatever the instruction is, that they do. So, and it also, I think, speaks to the relationships that officers have with folks downtown and in the areas with that compliance, that voluntary compliance that happens. So, and that's good that we have more folks that are being voluntary compliant, and then only having, you know, out of the whole initiative, we had approximately 100, I think 94 arrests, and then 50-something citations. So our enforcement activity is getting close to where we were pre-pandemic. So it's kind of getting to the same numbers. And then we made some key arrests with some folks that were really causing a lot of issues downtown. And so that also sends a message as far as compliance, because, you know, prior to the initiative, one thing we heard was that, and from a lot of different folks, were that there doesn't seem to be consequences for outrageous behavior. So that was our goal in the initiative, was to show that, yes, there are consequences for outrageous behavior.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
If you gave an answer, I missed it, I apologize. I think Michelle asked, what are the plans for the continued partnership between the Sheriff's Department and APD? Did I hear that answer?
Yeah, I know we've been in talks. I met with Major Ledford earlier this week, and so it's something that we're discussing. There's no definite concrete plans right now, but we're always looking at ways that we can work together better. Sheriff, do you want to? Okay.
Wise man. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for, specifically for Deputy Chief?
Will the page for the downtown safety initiative on the city's website stay active with those resources?
I'll let Dana answer that.
The page is active. In terms of updating the numbers, we're not doing that at this moment, but we're working on, as an organization, how to better track the work that we're doing and be more data-driven, but that might not be in the same system.
But the contacts for resources and all of that will stay there. Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good. Do we have any other questions regarding the safety initiative from the commission?
I have another one. I don't really know. It's probably to Dana. The biohazard hotspot cleaning, where is that advertised? How does that work?
Asheville app.
Asheville app.
Yeah, so that's something that we have a couple different contracts, both for our garages
Can I
and
just get like a standing 9 a.m. over down at Spicer Green Jewelers? That'd be great.
the Asheville app is the best way to report.
Well, this is a
those
good
issues.
question in general. So if I'm a business or a resident downtown or someone that sees somebody experiencing what doesn't appear to be a crime, but maybe a mental health incident, what I'm hearing is you have an option. You can use the app or you can call the non-emergency number, right? And in the case that, so what did you call that got the community responder program?
Oh, they were making one of those points of contact.
They were just
happened
there.
to be there.
Okay.
Right.
So in your situation, your next step when they left would have been to call the non-emergency number? Okay.
Which I
And then
to
if you
figure
have a
out right
biohazard cleanup need, use the app,
Okay.
right? Okay. Just trying to get some more information out.
I guess the other comment is really more for the media, is that we've had so much publicity of this 60 days that we need to then get the message out that this is ongoing. Because folks felt safe coming downtown for that 60 days, presumably. And now it's like, well, what happens on the 61st? Is it a diet that then all of a sudden we're good? We're skinny for the rest of our lives? And getting that message across that it is clean and safe downtown and that folks still can come downtown to eat, work, and play, because this is a vital economic hub for our whole region.
Well, and that's an Asheville Downtown Association survey, so maybe that's something that the ADA can continue to do every 6 months or something, so we can at least get input. But it would be really helpful if the data was still being collected on the city side. I don't know if that's a huge lift or what, but.
So I do have a question about the data, and you mentioned it with the Public Works. So we had to shift some resources, basically away from some other areas. Do we have any data? So I've got two questions regarding the data. Do we have any data that there's been a increase in incidents, lack of safety, cleanliness in other areas of the city because we drew resources? That's my first question. My second question is one that I had kind of asked earlier. We're collecting a lot of information from the community responder APD side. Do we have any even anecdotal evidence of how this is hitting those who are being contacted, the people that are being arrested or responded to? So I don't know who answers those two questions, but those are my two questions before we really get into public comment.
The community responders have they're asking specific questions when they're engaging with folks, so they have some really good input and information that we haven't, been at the point to do a whole presentation about, but I think there's some really good learning going on there.
Okay.
In terms of impacts,
Outside
yeah,
the
so we
downtown.
as a team have been, it's different depending on the department and depending on the service. So there have been some impacts that we're aware of. So graffiti, for instance, we've heard from our folks that there's been a little bit more right outside of downtown. We haven't heard, so there haven't been spikes in crime outside of downtown, which is obviously something that we were looking at during this period. And there haven't been increased concerns from the community about anything in particular. I know, some resources were shifted related to mowing, but that, so there's just, it's on a very
Granular level.
granular level.
Okay.
And each individual department is tracking that. And so we are trying to make adjustments based on those situations and
Okay.
encouraging our departments to provide the highest level
So
of
maybe
service
we can
possible.
table the discussion on how, obviously this is impacting a variety of groups, of citizens and stakeholders and just visitors to downtown. And I'm very interested in the discussion of how this affects those who are, we've increased police, and how does it feel to be policed increasingly? Is that working on both sides of the equation? And if we don't have that data yet, then we can have that discussion later, I think. Any other comments or questions before we open this up to public comment? That's why I looked at you.
Yeah, you could tell. I guess one of my questions, this might be for you, Mike, is, when or perhaps from the fire department, when we're sending out the community responders, is there times when the responders are showing up and they're saying, well, we need someone who has the power of arrest to show up? When we are sending, because it makes me really hopeful when I see the community paramedics out there, because they're part of a longer-term solution than, frankly, your department can provide for most of these folks. And so I'm really excited to see them. But I know there's also times when a dangerous situation can arise. When we're leading with our community paramedic response, how often is it that they say, hey, we need help from someone with a badge?
So I'll first say, I think that's why it's important to report incidents or somebody that seems to be in crisis by calling the non-emergency number or calling 911 instead of using the Asheville app, because it's a faster response. But you also have a dispatcher who is trained to see, how is the situation unfolding? Because most of these situations are dynamic, and it could be not dangerous 1 second and then turn dangerous. So there have been times where both the community responders and the community paramedics have got on a scene and then said, well, there's a weapon involved, or we need APD here to help mitigate whatever's going on. And then go back and forth. And then we also call the community responders.
Okay.
And so whenever folks need resources instead of law enforcement. So, but I'll let TJ.
Hello, I'm TJ with the Asheville Fire Department. I'm the supervisor for the community responders. Hate to hear your story about that,
It happens.
Spicer.
But hey, that's the next
Well,
question.
yeah, we're learning every day as we go along with the program. We have made a lot of great changes in it, and we can't fix everything, but For an example, to your question, 2 of our personnel were monitoring the parking decks. It's been a big deal. They found somebody actively breaking into a vehicle while they're there. They confronted them. We don't carry weapons, and we don't arrest. But my just happened to be the guy that just ran 100 miles in a day, and the guy took off. And he chased him around for 15 minutes, got a hold of APD. APD was right on it. They was able to arrest this man. He obviously done this a lot. So we've seen crime, but we've seen a lot of good. And there's certain places in the city that seem to be maybe more of hot spots and we've been able to collect that data and focus on them areas. Right now, we've moved over into West Asheville, but we also have a crew that's downtown. We're still checking on businesses, checking daily, and it has made a big improvement. Our phone constantly rings from business owners that are, hey, can you help out with this? And we're there every chance we get. It is a great program, and we feel like we've made a huge change. But I mean, stuff like that. So, and we've been able to help people get housing and the resources they need to, do better, get out of their situation. So that's where. But we're 7 days a week, every day. But any more questions on what? I know I've seen some of y'all at your businesses.
I just want to say thanks for working together, because that's, I think, something that everybody's looking for, is to have all these different departments, be able to share these resources, and when they're not the right response, to be able to get the right response. This does feel new. I don't know whether it's new in messaging or it's new in real substance, but it is refreshing.
Sure. And that's a great point. We get calls from everybody, from the police department. It's just not the calls we get from their parking enforcement, trash, business owners. So it's everybody working together and letting us know, because we can't be everywhere, but a lot of people's told us stuff, and we've learned a lot, and we've passed it on to APD, stuff we can't handle. We're here for the business owners and for the people in the community, and we appreciate it, letting us get the chance to even do this program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. So I think I can open it up to public comment. Yes. I don't know do we need to do a sign-up order, or what do you think?
We didn't do a sign-in. We have
have
a
a
sign-in
sign-in
sheet,
sheet.
but the sign-in sheet was not necessarily for
It's
public
not
comment.
necessarily
I
in
think if
order.
you all
I
can
think-
try to be orderly.
I
we
think
can-
we'll be okay.
Yeah.
So anyone who'd like to come, just please state your name. I'm going to kind of keep you to 3 minutes. I'm supposed to do that. I'll do the best I can.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Honor Moore. I'm the founder and co-chair of the Asheville Coalition for Public Safety. First off, I just want to say, Andrew Fletcher, you're the snappiest dresser on the board. Love old school. So Sage sent me a text and said, maybe you all should come down and speak. I am a person who grew up in Asheville, North Carolina, came back via having gone to school in the inner city of Baltimore, lived in Seattle, Washington, and then lived in New York City. So I want to make it clear, I've lived in some big, bad cities. I'm not afraid. I'm not a person who walks around fearful in life or anything like that. I've worked in 3 locations downtown. My husband has had a business right around the corner from Spicer Green and from Jan Davis's business. Hey, Jan. It's directly across the street from A-Hope. A-Hope has had incredible problems in the last 3 years. My husband's business moved away from Ann Street. It started happening basically in the last 3 years. They were pretty contained for most of that time. Certainly, my husband's business never had any expectations it would be perfect at all times. You can't be across from A-Hope and expect that. But it got bad, and it hasn't really gotten better. Let me just say this to Eva Michelle in answer to some of your questions. One of the best ways we can curb crime downtown is having a police presence. It's plain and simple. Statistics show that. And as Mike Lamb said, just being out and about and having that presence, people simply behave differently in the presence of an officer. It's like having a teacher in a classroom. It's very simple. When the teacher steps out or you have a substitute teacher, kids do behave differently. So one of the things our group is doing is we're continuing to advocate for entry-level police salaries. We thank the city for giving that extra 1% bump to the police department, but we are in competition with places like Hickory that are paying over $50,000 entry level. We are in competition with other cities to recruit officers who are looking to how they're going to retire one day and have proper health benefits in retirement. We are not competitive with other cities that are smaller than Asheville. So part of me coming to this particular meeting is just to kind of let you all know, our group is comprised of over 200 people. We have hyper-focused on this issue since last October. We show up for all kinds of meetings. We meet with a lot of the people that you see in this room. I've met with them. So we're learning just as much as you are. But I strongly advocate that we, in our budget next year, bump up those entry-level salaries. Thank you.
Thank you. That was really good. That was 3 minutes, by the way. Go ahead. Hello, Mr.
Good
Nutter.
morning. I'm David Nutter, city planner of long experience with great experience in downtown Baltimore, downtown Rochester, New York, and downtown Denver, among others. As I see it, downtown Asheville is our very precious revitalization achievement in Asheville and is non-replaceable. So I'd just like to congratulate all concerned for this fine performance in getting it back to normal. Please keep it up.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. I'm Jan Davis. For those of you who don't know me, I was on council for a number of years, and I was liaison to this commission the entirety of that time. And I appreciate what you all do. Sometimes you feel in your seat that you're not heard or not important, but that's not true. Council members are listening. And it's really a great opportunity to come down and thank everyone for casting an eye on North End, South End, and Patton Avenue in that area. The Western Corridor is a doorstep to this community, and unfortunately, it's a pretty bad doorstep. I located there in 1984, been there ever since, and invested in it, and was one of the reasons I served on council. But we had an arson fire on Good Friday, and we're still not back in business. We will open, I hope, in another 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm staying in the same place. We are a neighbor directly to A-Hope. As the church has moved out back of us, they could not take it any longer. Just like John Minkus and Jeremy Goldstein moved from there earlier, but we're still staying there. Really can't afford to move, for one thing. But the reality is that area is still blighted, still hurts. Even with the greater police presence, it's better. But unfortunately, and I have great compassion for homeless or unhoused people, the reality is there's probably about 100 people that are not seeking housing. That's not what they're about. They're about the activity that goes on there. We have open air drug markets that go on in the lot beside us almost daily. There are drug dealers that come there and sell to the unhoused, who sell it to and prey upon their peers. Until that's stopped and the overcapacity of A-Hope is changed, that's not going to end. No matter how many police officers we have in that area, they can't watch it. The reality with A-Hope being there, their overcapacity for the client base they serve, those people fall out onto the street and make it very objectionable for people visiting and work, those of us who work there or people who are there to do business are afraid to drive down Ann Street. People who sit with their legs in the street, almost dare to be hit, sometimes doing things that you would not want your family to see. Until that stops, and we have a new interim director coming in next week, David Nash, who everyone knows, and David's a great guy. Marcel is a great guy back there, and just people try. But until we get some rules and get some abeyance of those rules, we're never going to make that the doorstep of this community that it should be. I do appreciate the stormwater people coming in, and that was on the drawing board when I was on council several years before I left council, so I'm glad to see that coming to fruition. Last redo of the street was in 1988. So I do appreciate that, Ms. Campbell, and I appreciate the officers' presence. We're seeing a difference made by them being there. So thanks for the time. Thank you for what you did.
Very good.
Hi, I'm Helen Hyatt from the South Frenchbourg neighborhood, which is one of the closest neighborhoods. And thank you for serving here. I live about a 15-minute walk from the city, and so for the last 2 years, I have not walked the city because it has been so bad. And I did walk recently, and I was absolutely shocked and delighted by what is possible when a city wants to do something. I usually walk early in the mornings. The streets were clean. There was no urine on the streets, no people sleeping in the business entrances. There was nobody coming up, do you have any change? Can I have a cigarette? Half-eaten meals lying around. No feces in the corner. It was great. It was really great. So I really appreciate that. And with that, when APD is there and there's lots of folks around, you just don't feel safe. So I had just quit going. And, you know, as most people know, a lot of people quit going downtown. So it was very uplifting, and I really appreciate it. Even Pitchin Park was really great. I have three separate issues, three things I want to address. The second one I wanted to go is I would really like to applaud the recent change of leadership with the Housing Authority. Monique Pierre has come in, and she is awesome. She puts public safety first, and she does what she says she's going to do. There's been a significant improvement in this area since she came on board. She has taken the initiative of hiring people that live within the system and given them positions of power and security. And the fellow at Aston Towers is Steve Wilson. He is now a visible presence. He walks around. He's introduced himself to everyone on the street that lives there. He's there in the evenings, the weekends, and he gets on all the people that aren't doing the right thing and are not behaving. Usually, APD and the fire department is called to Aston Tower about 5-6 times a day. They're just always there, sometimes 4 or 5 trucks. It's a huge waste of resources. But since this happened, it's been amazingly different. So I'm hoping that'll help out the police department. We've worked with the police department very, very closely in the 10 years that I've been there. We often meet, they come to our neighborhood meetings, and they've been very helpful, but they haven't been able to come since they've had no people. But so Monique is going to do this in all of the housing authorities, so this should help the city a lot because we see so much of this kind. But it's the physical presence of seeing a person and getting into trouble if you do bad things, like you pull the fire extinguisher that you shouldn't, you know, someone's going to get on you. There's just people there. We're thankful that David Nash did put the large fence around there that people cannot cut the wire. And we still experience a lot of negative downflow from the 4 agencies at the top of the street. They come down, they go from the encampments up and down the street, and they leave their needles, their meals, and everything all the way up and down. We've had fires in the Delta House, the basement, which is a kids' after-school program, significant damage. The Varick Chapel, a fire in their basement, significant damage. 158 South Frenchbourg, an assault where the person ended up in the hospital. 220 South Frenchbourg, they took all the mail out of the thing, built a fire on the deck, and nearly burnt that man's house down. And the bus stop in front of the middle school, all the folks that used to sit in Pritchard Park are now sitting in front of the middle school, smoking their crack, because they purchased it in that area, and we still have a steady stream of prostitutes, pimps, and johns, but we are not bothering APD because we know you're going to have to work on it. But they are still there. We have 6 new girls working there now, and it's not so much the girls, but the johns are a big, big problem. So if you've ever done a ride around with an APD officer, I would beg you to do it to see what a day in the life of a police officer is, because it is so difficult, and many of us have done this, and it is worth doing. And Asheville needs its fully funded, fully supported police department. So we need to raise these salaries, get folks in, and get them back working, because they just need to see these people, and they will behave. Thank you for letting me have the time.
Hello, I'm Sheila Surratt, downtown resident and Asheville native. Crime is really bad in downtown. I've seen it all. I can sit here all day and tell you what I've seen, and you say, well, if you don't have a video, I don't believe you. It's true. We've got a major issue with the ministry down here. When you come inside the city, Patton Avenue, Haywood Ministries, you've got tents set up there almost every single day. You've got clothes. They're still lined up on the fence there. You've got a tarp, people sleeping under their tarps, and this is happening every day. So when they ask the people that has the blue tarp to leave, guess where they went? Across the street on the Duke Power property. And the big tarp is set up there with buggies and trash all over the place. And as of AHOPE, that's not safe either. So I don't know if that ministry has security, but in my opinion, I suggest they should have security. Because why isn't the people allowed that run that ministry allowed to go outside? Oh, you're on state property. They can't tell them to leave because they said, oh, they're on state property. And there's trash all over the city. What kind of image does that give our city when you see that, everybody coming into the city and leaving the city? What kind of image? Have you all seen this? Anybody here seen that? It needs to stop. Most of those people that are camped out, they are very dangerous criminals. I know that for a fact. He knows it. She knows it. We don't need these people roaming the streets and doing what they want, getting their fix, running back in their tent, running up and down AHOPE, and laying up and down the streets. It's not acceptable. We need something done with AHOPE, and we need something done with that ministries, because they're just enabling these people. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Marcus Laws, Homeless Services Director for Homeward Bound. I oversee AHOPE, and I will start out by saying that to everybody's concerns, we do not condone any of those behaviors. Over this past year, I have actively spent my days when administrative work should be done going up and down AHOPE with my Ann Street with my staff, picking up trash, asking people to leave. One of the most significant challenges I encountered when I began was substance use that was occurring at the facility, and that was the first thing that we stopped. One thing that folks may not know is a lot of the folks that you see on the sidewalks are folks that have been barred from services for the exact same reasons that have been expressed by Honor, by Jan, and by this lady here. Sheila? Yes. So I want you guys to know that we don't condone those behaviors. Our goal is to partner with the community, community members, community agencies. We have plenty of meetings with APD and city staff. We're working with Buncombe County. I'm working with Hayek right now on multiple resolutions to limit the amount of people that we are seeing at AHOPE, to limit the hours, to have more targeted interventions, because we do understand that it's an issue. The main difference, I would say, for me when it comes to this issue is I don't have the ability to shy away from it. I tend to wade into it. And it's not a situation. It does make it dangerous for me. It does make it dangerous for my staff. So I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not a situation, that it's not an issue. It very much is one. It's one I believe that unless we do this work as a community, that it won't get done, and we will continue to have these issues. I don't think that we can sit back and put the responsibility to a few people. I think we all have to come and be solution focused and really talk about what the issues is and how we can resolve them together. So there are multiple issues around services that are being provided. Asheville is not the only city that I've worked in. I've worked in Fort Lauderdale, I've worked in Miami, I've worked in West Palm Beach. And some of the central things that happen when we're trying to address issues with homelessness is that the community is always involved. They always have a voice. And it's not about blaming or complaining. It's about us getting together and fixing it. So that would be my call. For everything that's said, I will continue to work and I will continue to walk up and down the street every single day and ask people to move and try and keep people from using on that street and do the best that I can. I know my staff will do the best that they can. And we will do our best to find a resolution. And if you have one, we're willing to listen. I'm willing to implement any strategies possible. I do understand that this is a fight, and I will fight for this community, but I will fight for my team as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus.
We know you can't help everybody, but we appreciate you helping the ones you can. Thank you. Other public comment? Sure, I guess. Mr. Nutter yields the remainder of his time.
This is a great opportunity. Mayor Mannheimer suggested that there be a meeting of the people that are affected by AHOPE, those people that both work there. And I know that Manager Campbell has also waded into that a bit. But this might be the perfect group to put that meeting, convene a meeting of those people that are affected most directly by the actions of AHOPE, including Marcus and the new director, to sit down and talk about what we can do. The thing is overcapacity, and unfortunately, shorter hours and doing less service for fewer clients are going to put more people on the street. Quite frankly, that's the problem we have now. It's overcapacity, so they're outside wandering up and down. Had a shooting also on my corner that I failed to mention about a month after my arson fire, which was started by homeless people or people that are just out about to strike out. In fact, there were 3 fires that week. So this is serious stuff. And this, either the council or a downtown commission or even the downtown association that Megan used to be such a part of would all be great conveners, great people to put at a table. But we do need to be heard, and we need to be taken seriously. We've got a lifetime, even Michelle's family. I've been in this thing back before the revitalization that David talked about. It's important. We can't let this go downhill more than it has. Thank you.
And thank you for that revitalization, Jan.
Go ahead.
Sorry, guys. What it is you hear everybody speak, and just like you all, you want to follow up with a few thoughts, especially since Deborah Campbell's here. Hi, Deborah. The city used to have a board, a commission for public safety. They don't have that anymore. Ironically, they had it when it was a safer city. Now that we're having all these conversations, they combined the climate change with the public safety, which to our group doesn't make a lot of sense. It's almost
the council reorganization.
Yeah,
Okay.
they combined all of that, and so Maggie Ullman's in charge of that, but she's really a climate change person. You know, it's like we really need a dedicated board, in my opinion. The other thing I want to say about AHOPE, and I had the pleasure of meeting you, which was great. And yes, you guys are trying to do great things, so please hear that from us. But as I see it, the problem with that property is they're on a postage stamp piece of land and they own no land around them, okay? So then they don't have to, once people are off their land, they don't have to be responsible if they're in the sidewalks or in the streets. They don't have like a yard or any place for people to congregate in which they watch. Homeward Bound has over a $7 million annual budget. It is our belief that they could consider hiring security after hours to take care of that end of town. I mean, it's a huge, they do run it now, a huge budget. So I just kind of want to make that heard here because they are on a postage stamp piece of land. So then when those people scatter all over the city, they're not responsible. So my husband's business partner will show up for work and literally see people on the front porch shooting up between their toes, people defecating, people being human, people struggling, all those things that we unfortunately see. So that area is really a problem, and it got a lot worse in the last 3 years. Okay, thanks.
Any final public comment?
I'd just like to add to thanks you guys for being here, and that I see some people with some shared experiences, and if y'all have not, I hope that some of y'all make an attempt to walk out of here and get a coffee together. And as Mr. Davis said, as a convener, you know, well, this is a convening right now, and if there's some opportunities for y'all to work together, and you know, this Friday morning in City Hall is when you can take that advantage. You know, I'd encourage you to take those opportunities.
Yeah, if public comment is done, I'll just say a couple things. Thank you to everybody that came. I know some of it was short notice, but I think what the commission is trying to do here is offer an ongoing place for this kind of input. It may not be this formal and have this much staff presence all the time. Thank you for all of you who have taken your time this morning to be here. But we want to keep the conversation, some kind of avenue open around it so that we can continue to receive input and give out information. A lot of great information was shared today. And we learn a lot, at least I do in my role, that there's really never a point in which you have given enough information. You can always give more, and even if it's repetitive. So I want to encourage us to continue to use this commission as needed. But also, I think, you know, there was discussion around a greater conversation maybe needing to be had, maybe, you know, stakeholders around Ann Street. But also, I think in the larger community, there's maybe a piece missing because, you know, the fine folks at APD can only do so much if the folks they are arresting are released 5 hours later and the punishment is not, there's no punitive ongoing anything. So, you know, I'd be curious to just have us all in a room, all those stakeholders that are impacted, all the magistrates, all these people that are really making everything gel and the whole process. I think it's important that we have those relationships and start those conversations as well, because some of this we're just wearing out and overtiming our staff and spinning wheels that we can't really solve things on until we have some more relationships, understanding, and assets in the community, places for folks to go when they're experiencing crisis. You know, there's a lot of cogs we're still working on, but I want to encourage those larger conversations, folks that aren't in this room today but could be, and maybe that's something this commission can continue to host in the future or something, but there are more pieces I'd like to see in this conversation. But really great input today from everybody, and like Andrew said, I think there's shared information, shared experiences, and we all want what's best both for people that are suffering from these incidents, but also for the safety of our community. I mean, to Jan Davis's point, some of us have been invested in these businesses for decades, and families are invested generations, and it's hard to watch this chapter, and we just want to make sure that we're being responsive and helping folks and helping the community at the same time. And it's getting a little, I see it getting better, but it's been rough. It's been rough. So I hope we continue to talk and work on this.
So can I just add to that for a second?
Sure.
We've seen it before, and Jan can attest to that, that in the mid-'80s, even when I was growing up, downtown was boarded up. People did not come downtown. The Asheville Mall was built. Our economic center was not vibrant. And if we don't learn from history, it is doomed to repeat itself.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. That was a great discussion. Again, this was a discussion, not necessarily a formal presentation. City staff is still very much collecting and aggregating and processing the information. The key takeaways we want the community to understand this morning is that this is an ongoing initiative. There are substantial resources continually being dedicated to this. We appreciate folks coming in and saying thank you, and we appreciate folks coming in and saying you have more work to do, especially here. We, on this commission, have heard you. We are going to continue to communicate that to council, try to get the resources where they need to be. And again, we really thank all the APD, the AFD, community responders, Public Works, all the different agencies and staff that have put in time over and above to really work on this. Thank you, Dana, for pulling things together. And with that, I'm going to move on.
Hey, Brian, may I share one last thing?
No.
I believe on Tuesday, I'm going to the opening of Mission Hospital's expanded mental health facility. So just a little data there. I mean, that's next week, and I think it's 120 beds, and that's going to help as well.
This is a big conversation. There's lots of parts and pieces. That's for sure. So with that, I'll move on to the next order of business. Pack Square visioning updates. Y'all can get up and leave. It's fine. Stephanie won't mind.
hear about Pack Square?
You would think.
My computer went,
Yeah, we have to figure out a way that these are recharged with IT.
They're running an update.
that's what's, yeah, it's this thing, it says it's gonna update in an hour. And it shuts down.
There's no way to override it.
Last time, and then I forgot there was one time you weren't here, I went to
Well, thank you very much. I think everyone would, but they have to prioritize. It's absolutely fine.
That worked.
But it doesn't happen as much anymore.
Yeah.
I think.
We're ready. We're ready.
Great, thank you, Chair.
Thank you for coming.
For everyone, my name is Steph Munson-Dahl. I work for the Planning and Urban Design Department. And wow, I have a lot of thoughts after hearing all of that, right? Public space is important, and what happens downtown is super important.
You would have think they would have all stayed.
I mean, right here, we're focusing on a place that we're trying to make safer and more welcoming and more inclusive for everybody. You know, I think we walked around for maybe every day for 20 years, enjoying Pack Square and all the things that the folks from the Pack Square Renaissance did in the early 2000s. And then one day we woke up and there were protests in the street, and some of us took a step back and rethought about how our public spaces feel to everyone. So after that, there was a joint city-county task force, we all know this, that recommended to the city that that advanced monument come down. Eventually, City Council and County Commission put some money together for us to have a visioning process to think about inclusivity in our most central public space. And we've done almost a year of community engagement, and I want to thank you so much for participating in that and acting as the umbrella advisory body. Many of you participated at the end of June in our Community Advisory Committee meeting. So instead of going through some of those same things, I'm going to focus on a very tight piece of information today. But I will say that at that meeting, the Community Advisory Committee got to go over a sneak peek of the plan, which included one unifying idea for a really long-term vision of what the square could be, and 10 design principles or ideas that we could mix and match to get to that vision at some certain point. And the news is that, and these are your takeaways. The news is that we're releasing that plan for everybody to see on July 21st. So these are the bookends that if you walk away today, I hope you remember this. Next Friday, countdown has begun. Plan comes out on our engagement hub, publicinput.com. You can tell everybody to take a look at it, and 24/7 they can provide comments over there all day.
So exciting.
It is very exciting that we are at this point. And then we have a few months, just a couple months, to do this community engagement plan review process that you will be involved in. And we come out the other side, very likely on Tuesday, September 12th, unless something changes. And we present the plan to council. And what you all know is that one of the things we'll be talking about, council, is not just this plan and how we can use it as a guide, but the fact that the city has already received $3 million to start implementation of the plan. Yay!
That Steph Monson-Dahl helped us get.
A whole team of people helped us
I
get
knew you'd say that, but really, I was
Yeah.
going to make sure to mention that you did that. That we just got news of this not long ago, y'all. Steph was
Yeah,
able
it's
to-
very exciting, and but I'm not going to focus on what we're going to.
It is, and she's just going to storm right over it, but
even done.
she did a lot of work together. It's $3 million grant.
Thank you. Staff thanks all of you, because we absolutely, I'm dead serious. We couldn't do it without you and your input. And I was writing the acknowledgements page last night for the plan, and thinking back on it, so many people have said really critical key things, including a lot of people in this room that have helped us get to this point or understand what we need to do in order to be even just fiscally sustainable about things. So 3 things I want to share with you today, and they're all special events. So these are cool things for us to get even deeper involved into this plan. So the first thing is that on Friday, July 28th, that's 2 weeks from now, Come on down, tell people to come on down. If they love downtown, I bet you they have their own stories about how downtown was created and what happened here. Well, we're gonna have Catherine Calhoun Cutshaw from the library talk about her upcoming book. Sidebar, when we started this public engagement process, I said, Catherine, can you write me a little paper on the background and the history of downtown? She said, yeah, sure. I said, that will be such a great engagement tool as we move forward. Well, she couldn't stop, and she never gave me a paper, and she wrote a book. So it's a really cool history book about a truer, deeper history about the heart of our downtown, especially things related to Pack Square. Come on down. It's going to be fun. Then we'll have a little tiny break, and we're going to have a big meeting. It's kind of a reboot or part 2 of that design workshop that many of you went to in January. So we will have an opportunity to really kind of go over the nuts and bolts of all 10 recommendations, which range from, close down North Pack Square to anything but really pedestrian-friendly level traffic, to create a cultural corridor all the way down South Market Street that ties together the disparate historical narratives, like pretty intense stuff, right? So we will be able to go into that with you, with the urban designer from our team, and we're gonna have refreshments and all of those things that help make it a good time. The third event, this is on Saturday, July 29th. It's in the press room of Harris Cherokee Center from noon until 2 o'clock. Mitchell, who was our project manager, and most of you know him, Mitchell Silver, is going to speak not only about the plan and provide an overview of it, but really help folks understand why we did it and why reinvesting in public space matters, especially in times like this. So the Community Reparations Commission is actually having the retreat in the main upstairs banquet hall at the same time. So there'll be a lot of people coming in and on there and amazing things happening that day. I hope that you can join us.
The press room?
The press room is downstairs. So there'll be somebody in the main foyer who can guide folks to the right places depending on what they're there for. Yeah. So that's really what I wanted to leave you with, the bookends. We're starting a process, and then we've got an end in sight.
Remind me when it comes here for us to make a recommendation to council.
Oh, that's a great point. So this is a really nice segue into your next item. So it's scheduled for August 14th, which is your normal meeting date on that second Friday. You will now be considering whether or not to change your regular meeting dates to the fourth Friday. We can bring it to you on the fourth Friday. We might consider a special meeting. You should consider what your meeting dates are regardless. Do not let this meeting stand in the way of having a great regular meeting schedule. I just wanted to note that that it will be going to PED, and that's something that we'll talk to you offline about, chairs, to make sure that the folks at PED, our council people, get what they need first, whether that's a recommendation from this group or if they would rather just see it before you make a recommendation.
Okay. We can always call a special meeting and make it remote if we need.
We can do a special meeting. We just
Okay.
have to publicize it and stuff to make sure that we stay on your schedule. That's why I'm asking.
Appreciate that. So the 14th is that day, and perhaps we stick with that day as just a special meeting to get the Community Advisory Committee and the full Downtown Commission together for what we would do is present the themes from the public comments that we'd heard so far, anything that we'd plan on tweaking, and get questions from you, answer them, and then ask you for some input.
That would be 11th? Yeah.
The 11th. 14th is the PED meeting. I'm sorry. I have these numbers just stacked in my head.
Well, this is really exciting. I mean, in some ways, there's some similarity to another big public space that we've all worked on. But we're $3 million ahead on this one.
Yeah. We'll get there with that one too, Andrew.
Right, we'll get there, right?
Yep.
I'm going to live that long. But that's really exciting. And so I am, it's really great to see some progress on this. And I cannot wait to see what comes next.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, so with that, we had a poll, and we've had this discussion. We are going to, I would propose that we change our meeting date and time to the fourth Fridays at 9 a.m. This would be, we can decide whether it takes effect into August or into September, based on the stuff that's going on, and go from there. So that's the motion on the table. Actually, I'm gonna make a motion that we move our meeting date to the fourth Friday at 9 a.m. starting in September. Second. It's gonna be that easy.
My only comment is thank you.
Really? Is there any discussion? We're good?
Why September?
So that we can stay on schedule for the pack.
I'm out of town for that Pack Square thing, so don't, don't do anything on my behalf.
I think that makes the easiest sense, since we've got stuff.
I'm in town for the fourth Friday
It's
as
gonna
well.
be difficult to get
Hey,
things on the
Brian,
schedule.
did you hear that?
No.
We're all three out of town for the second Friday, but in town for the fourth Friday in August, if that matters.
It's just that PED
The PED.
will come first, which,
Yeah.
I mean,
I won't be at that PED either.
I'm just going to recommend that you vote to change your regular meeting schedule, and you can determine whether or not you start.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, you won't have quorum.
There's 4 already out on the 11th.
I could join virtually if that's an option.
Same.
I won't be in town.
Same.
And I need to get some input from the PED chair about whether or not they need your recommendation first.
Oh,
So
you're out of town on the fourth Friday of that month.
No, it's this
That was
month.
this month.
That's
I'm the
this month.
PED liaison too.
Yeah, I'm missing the 28th meeting.
it just means that's why I said the council date is now September 12th. If PED wants to hear it the following month, then the council date will now be in October for Pack Square.
So it's whether or not PED meets with y'all's recommendation or not.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that succinctly.
Well, and I'm sure they would
We
welcome
can do
your.
an online meeting. I'm gonna
Yeah, it's
modify-
not that big a deal really, because PED is council members only. So council will get your recommendation even if it's after PED meets, but
full council would.
yeah.
So what is that?
I move that we move our meeting date to the fourth Friday at 9 a.m. starting in August. And if we need to have a special meeting prior to that, we can do that. So moved. Seconded again. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. I don't want to talk about that ever again.
That'll work until it doesn't.
All right. Updates and reports. Ricardo doing his Stephen Lee Johnson impersonation.
Right. Let's see, we actually talked about that hot spot on Carter Street. So the tribute hotel, 68 Carter, that was continued to the meeting next week. And we had an informal review of the Temple Hotel just down the street from that on 22 Carter. And that was just an informal review. It was same architect, and I guess a different, was it the same civil? No, it was a different civil, right?
I think it was the same. I can't remember.
Well, he wasn't there, so maybe
Yeah.
that's so, but that
It was the
team-
same poor civil design.
But similar, nice architectural design.
Nice architecture.
Yes.
Are those properties owned by the same?
Yes, but they have a different LLC.
Different analyses, right?
So yes, but no. Yeah, we had that discussion because of the whole master plan.
Hence the same design team.
But different architecture. I mean, it looks different. It's not gonna look like the same thing, but they're gonna be familial. So, okay. Asheville Downtown Association, Jessica, you're making an introduction too.
Yep, I wanted to start by introducing Hayden Clemens, who is our new executive director of our Asheville Downtown Association and comes to us from the Downtown Denver Partnership. We're really excited for her to be here. She started on Wednesday and is hitting the ground running. So
So
welcome.
this is why we still have somebody in the audience.
Yes.
Executive session, so I was like,
I was wondering.
Yes, so we're very excited to have Hayden, and I would encourage all of you to introduce yourselves to her when we're done with this meeting, as she will be a great resource for the Asheville Downtown Association and our city in general. So we also are in the midst of the Pritchard Park Summer Series, which is great. That has not happened in several years. We do have that funding again this year. That happens Tuesday through Friday evenings, and that goes until August 8th. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can Google Pritchard Park Summer Series, and it'll tell you what happens each evening. And our next Downtown After 5 is next Friday, so come out and support that. And we partnered with obviously the city and AIR and the Asheville Chamber, and we had about 15 people show up for a downtown cleanup a couple weeks ago as part of the safety initiative, so we're really excited about that, and we'll look at what we can continue to do to support that effort.
Wonderful. Homeless Initiatives report.
I submitted a report, but it's very thin. Most people didn't have a meeting, so there's not a whole lot to talk about there.
Okay. Okay. Public Space Management Task Force.
Yes, so we met on June 29th, I believe, and had a presentation and feedback session with some of the design team around the the Portland Loo style public bathroom that is slated to be built on College Street in between Rankin and Haywood. That little cutout by the parking deck. Saw some initial ideas about asking really high-level questions about, just placement of things, not really even so much, discrete design elements, but just how are we going to balance this space with the needs that we have? How are we going to, when there's a conflict between some needs, like, the need for tree canopy and the needs for public restroom and the needs for some infrastructure improvements, how are we going to balance those things? And I wouldn't say that we came up with a lot of answers, but we did, our definitive decisions that we could vote on. But what we did do is, I think, give some guidance to the design team about the direction that I think that we'd find success in. And so we're going to look back to here. I don't know, what's exactly the next step, Dana? Are they going to come back to us at public safety, public space management, or are they going to come to us here at downtown?
There's going to be a public meeting is the next step for that project.
Cool. Thank you, Dana.
Dana, I think you're next and last.
Good morning, everyone. Dana Frankel, for all who are watching. Okay.
I started 3 minutes.
Okay, you all heard enough about the Downtown Safety Initiative today, just continuing to provide some links for you all with more information. Thomas Wolfe Auditorium, we did get kind of a later request for some information on that, so I just have some of the basics on what's happening there. Status updates, which is potentially something we can talk about at a future meeting, but Thomas Wolfe Auditorium is not accepting any new bookings for events during the next 7 months due to an HVAC failure, and there's a quite significant lead time to receive the parts that they need, so 6 to 9 months. A theater-style setup is now in place in the larger arena, and so staff is working to make adjustments where they can to have shows take place there and or consider other adjustments. Folks that have bought tickets, if the shows aren't happening, they will be getting refunds, but it's still very much kind of like all hands on deck to make these adjustments right now. So more to come. I'll just note too that the Arts Council is going to have a forum in early August. I'm forgetting the date.
I think it's August 11th.
August 11th.
And I would just ask in all haste that we get this. This is a huge economic driver for bringing trips and things. I mean, Asheville, yeah, you guys must be feeling this too. The shockwaves from this are really, really big. There's a lot of trips that won't be made downtown because of this. And it's concerning. So, like, in all haste, like, whatever, can we 3D print these parts locally, guys? Can we, is that what we can do? No?
Not if you want more.
No. Sure.
This is a global issue.
It's a global issue, okay, well.
Not even regional or national. Yeah, those numbers are very normal right now. Actually, possibly on the short.
Okay. Well, PED did meet and discuss it, and then it's coming back to PED at the next meeting.
Thanks.
Yeah, and we got into the numbers a good bit, we got into the losses. I think the Asheville Symphony, Daniel was there for the meeting. He said his impact alone of removing the symphony was 85,000 tickets or visitors in those seats, just his one.
But they're still continuing with their season.
Elsewhere, I'm just saying the void that happens with this repair is pretty significant. But it also needs much more. I mean, it's not just HVAC. There's loading dock issues and stuff. And we're, on council, we're expecting a big, like, facilities-wide study and assessment on how all of our properties are aging and the impacts of deferred maintenance. So some of that stuff's coming up soon.
Wow. I know that we're better at responding to crises than maintenance as a city. I think a lot of cities are like that. So this gives me hope that we're going to actually be able to get to a better place soon. So thanks for wedging that in.
No problem.
That was my request.
Part of that discussion included what should happen across the street. Could that property help be a...
Oh, you know I'm here for it.
Okay, on the public restroom, there is a public input meeting scheduled for August 2nd. So that's coming up pretty quick. I'm sure we'll have more information to share by early next week. And at that point, it's the next step of design. So the Public Space Management Committee gave some really good insight, talked about things like seating and trees and programming, like things, opportunities like push carts. The design team will present a couple different options for feedback at that time. And I think it'll be a drop-in format. I hope it'll be at the Collider, so it'll be real close to the space. College patent bike lanes. So if you haven't seen, we have a report with all of the input received during the public input process. Transportation staff is working on scheduling a meeting with businesses around Pritchard Park to go over some of the updates they've made to the plan and see if those are workable. At this point, the new plan is anticipated to go to the Planning and Economic Development Committee of City Council in September. Outdoor dining updates, we're planning to come to you all next month. And then on to City Council in September. Missing middle housing study, I wanted to, a little bit less applicable to downtown, but I think it's a project of interest for you all, and wanted to just highlight that there's a survey available now. We're specifically looking for feedback from renters in our community, so please consider taking the survey and or helping get the word out about it. And then there's an open house style workshop happening Friday, August 4th from 4 to 7, and that's at the Harris Cherokee Center Banquet Hall. The budget was adopted. I've provided some links to more information, and I think that's what I've got, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dana? She doesn't have much to do.
Have you been in touch with Just Economics for renter outreach for that forum?
Great idea. I know that Vidilla on our team has been leading the effort, and I think he's been connecting with a lot of different folks. I know he's connecting to AIR, so that's a really good
I
idea.
know they've been reaching out and doing like tenants rights workshops and things like that. So they're starting to have those feelers and building a network of renters, folks that, like myself, that can be talked to.
Awesome. I'll make sure that they've connected. Also, the, what is the group called? That they're both very connected, the workers.
Asheville Food and Beverage.
Yeah,
United?
that's
Yeah,
another
they would be
group
too, because
that-
a lot of those folks are renters. So. And also, I will note for the record, in case that I get a parking ticket, I'm unable. It's 10:13. I'm unable to renew my parking, and I will use this as for my appeal if I get a parking ticket while I'm in this meeting. Thank you.
I had to take a video because it wouldn't process the
Yeah, I
payment
got
on my meter.
I was
A12.
running my car, but
There's a City of Asheville app, you can probably report the issue.
Yes. But
I've heard that works.
And a non-emergency number.
I've heard that works.
That's really funny.
The timestamped meeting.
That was a good meeting today. folks. Thank you. Upcoming, so outdoor dining in August, potentially figure out, do what now?
What about, I was just going to suggest, since we have the new ADA executive director, that we might say, hey, we'd love to see another survey. Welcome, by the way. We do this survey thing. I'm one of your board members. So it would be helpful to do it again in 6 months or 6 months from when it was, which was, I guess, May. But
That survey was done every 6 months
It
for the
is?
last several years. Initially in January in advance of the State of Downtown Luncheon, and then again about mid-year to see where things were. So that
Okay.
is a process that's in place that I'm happy to. But
these are the big old boots you're filling. Okay, so great, it's already
and
happening.
if there are questions that you want to see asked on it, I'm sure they
Yeah.
would be interested in hearing.
Consistent questions,
Yeah.
so we can watch data
Yeah.
over time is really best. Great meeting, everybody.
Councilwoman, wanted to give you the opportunity, we have this on the agenda for any other updates you want to share.
I was thinking we wouldn't have enough time, so I didn't prepare anything, but if there's anything specific y'all want to ask me about, this would be the time. We just started another budget cycle and new year for us, and anything else not working out downtown that you want to talk about?
I just want to, I want to figure out who's paying for this ongoing safety cleanliness thing, who's staffing it, and how that gets to be a line item-ish thing to do.
Well, we did have some ARPA funds for biohazard and cleaning stuff, but I think those will expire at some point. And then I would say that each of those departments is absorbing the cost at this point. Like, whether or not we're using more officers in overtime to fill shifts is kind of the difference, but we have a budgeted amount for this, so it's kind of blending in.
I guess I know you're in tune with that, and this is an ongoing discussion, but we heard several folks today say that we need competitive officer salaries, and I know I've heard you say the same thing.
Yeah.
And I would just reiterate that.
And we think, it's really hard to follow data sometimes in the media because there's a lot of numbers thrown around, but I believe the overall impact to APD wasn't that we gave an additional 1% in salary than the rest of the city, but in terms of benefits and other programs, I think it was a 14% increase in overall cost of personnel in the police department. So it was a pretty significant jump. I don't know that at the time we felt like we could really afford more. So now, the next budget cycle will start in October, November for the following year. So that's when we'd probably start picking that back up. I think one of the things that would be helpful to learn more about as it proceeds is the bonus and retention plan around, if you don't know, it included lateral hires and bonuses. Like if you were an officer, but you knew one in Charlotte, and you called that officer in Charlotte and said, hey, why don't you come check out Asheville? And they actually recruited and started, then that originating officer who called his buddy would receive a stipend. Like there's some bonuses built in now to help us procure a stronger department with some of our strongest officers, if you know what I mean. So I'm curious to see how that works out over time. I'm not sure, I was actually gonna ask them. I think I saw, so we had the 4 new swear-ins, 5 new swear-ins maybe. We got 4 queued up, but I think we had, what I saw was a welcoming of 3 different officers that may have been lateral hires, that didn't have to go through BLET, came to us as trained officers from other communities, so they just needed like immersion into our, police unit, but we're ready to go. And I think that's one of the possible ways that we'll grow faster if we can increase that. So that was behind the retention program and bonus program, and maybe that will help. It takes a little time because those things don't happen in the first 6 months, right? But that should be helping soon. And I'm hopeful to see the downtown unit kind of reestablishing, but I really am and have been asking for a while what kind of staffing level it will take to have a dedicated officer unit downtown again. And I think that's the big unknown right now that we should figure out. Okay. The other thing that we budgeted for was, of course, updating the design guidelines. Yes. Happening, made it through. And one of the things that struck me on the presentation from staff was I think there were 41 or something lighting ideas caught, or 41 were fixed of the 54 or something. So there's 13 or 14 out there that couldn't be remedied. I'm curious if they're private property or streets that weren't well lit or something, if that's something that we can inform through design. So
I would say some of them are just owned by Duke.
Are just what?
Just owned by Duke.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Well,
it's
you know
waiting
what?
for parts.
Duke and the state are probably getting called to Asheville to do work a lot, repair work. The state properties being inundated with campers and stuff. Maybe they're in a position to want to help with some lighting, or I don't know. We have a new we used to reach out to Jason Walls, but he has a new replacement. He's gone bigger or something. So there's a new person that we're supposed to coordinate with. Maybe we can get a hold of them or have them come. Maybe they'd come. We can invite people. It works. Yeah.
They participated in a Tuesday call that I'm a part of this week. So
Oh, good.
It sounded like they were very interested in being more community.
That's awesome.
South Slope Vision Plan ever?
Yeah, I think it comes in August. It may get delayed again. So I did an interview about this recently, and I think what we summarized was a lot of the input opportunities around that particular plan were during the pandemic just by default because that was the schedule it was on. So then when it, as the pandemic has kind of wrapped up and people are getting back to their lives and being involved, we realized there were some key areas in the South Slope and neighborhoods surrounding it that didn't feel really informed. So the last few months have been like, okay, let's just regroup, go back to them, see if there's anything that we missed, and make sure that everybody feels heard. And that's what's been happening. I think Sasha Vertinsky, who had been administrating that as the project manager for years, is now our affordable housing specialist. So she's not doing that, but she might rally just to get it across the finish line. But my understanding is coming soon.
And then Patton Avenue corridor, the I-26 connector.
Yeah.
I was just going to say it's going to be 10 more years, but I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
So, we can't hear anyone
Oh.
say, I don't know why.
I don't know. I'm not sure what the question was.
Sorry.
Oh, wow. That's a big difference, actually. We may need to touch these mics closer.
I can just say for staff, we do have a project charter and a team put together. We're starting to do our own history and analysis gathering, and we'll be working with the team in about 2 to 3 months. Our first step is to put together that community advisory committee. We've already had some conversations about what that needs to look like, and this is the umbrella board, so we're looking forward to it. When you work with an NCDOT grant, you're always, the kickoff of the meeting is always tied to when they are able to process certain grant materials. So we're working on that and don't anticipate any delays.
What about maybe in the future a substation update? I don't know when that's coming back around.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have an updated.
Well, as we start talking about Harrah's, Thomas Wolfe, that overlaps because the substation is near there, and then there's the crumbling loading. That was all
What
wrapped
I
up.
can say is that there are active conversations and meetings happening right now, which wasn't happening more recently, about the substation. We can get you an update.
Yeah, when it's ready.
Okay. Any other myriad items we need to cover? No? Yes? No?
Oh, no, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded. All in favor, say aye and leave. Aye, thank you.
Is